like to welcome everyone to our 2022 Candidate Forum, whether you are here in person or live streaming. My name is Gwen Metatal, and I'm the Vice President of the League of Women Voters of Northeast Tennessee. We are part of the National League of Women Voters, an organization over 100 years old with the mission to empower voters and defend democracy. The League is proud to be nonpartisan, neither supporting nor opposing candidates or political parties at any level of government. As part of our goal to educate the voting public and in celebration of National Voter Education Week, we are collaborating with the Johnson City Press to bring this forum to you. We invited all of the candidates for the race for City Commission of Johnson City, and we have present tonight, alphabetically, John Baker, Jenny Brock, Jay Emberton, and John Hunter. At this point, I will turn things over to League member Dana York, who will go over the guidelines and moderate the forum.
Good evening, candidates. We appreciate your willingness to be here tonight and participate in this forum as part of the candidates that are running for the positions on the City Commission for the City of Johnson City. I am Dana York, and I'm a member of the East Tennessee League of Women Voters, and I will be your moderator tonight. The forum format is as follows. Each candidate will be allowed 1.5-minute opening statement and 1-minute closing statement. Their order of participation tonight was predetermined by drawing numbers. After the first speaker, the order of answers will rotate with each round of questions. Each candidate's response to the question is limited to, again, 1.5 minutes. A league timekeeper out front will indicate when 30 seconds remain with a yellow square, and then when time is up with a red square, you'll be required to stop at that time. Candidates were provided 2 questions in advance. They've not seen the remaining questions that were determined by representatives from the partnering organizations and edited to ensure they are non-biased, respectful, and relevant to the races for the participating candidates that they are running in. No questions will be posed from the audience. Candidates, this is a forum where we want to provide voters with your views on the issues presented. There is no cross-questioning between the candidates or additional responses as in a debate. Public forums such as this work best with a high level of civility and decorum being observed. Audience members are asked to refrain from responding or applause to candidate responses until we get to the end of the forum so that we can have time for as many questions as possible tonight. So now we will start with our opening statements, and we will start with Mr. Baker.
Good evening. Thank you to the League of Women Voters and Johnson City Press for holding this forum. I think it's very important that you give back to your community. I retired here in 2003, and since then I've worked with many different programs in the city to help those less fortunate. I've started the Pride Community Center of the Tri-Cities. I'm the current president there. I also work with ARCH, Appalachian Regional Coalition for Homeless. I'm the current chair of that board. Because I feel that giving back to your community makes your community better. Everyone needs to have a voice. We need to have inclusion and acceptance in our community because diversity is what makes us great as a city, that we can all work together. Thank you.
Mr. Emberton.
Good evening. Thank you to the League and to the Johnson City Press for hosting this. I will admit, when I got stationed here 10 years ago, I had never heard of Johnson City. I didn't listen to that song that everybody's aware of. But this was the first duty station where I ever felt that I was home. And after I'd been here a while, I found out that I have deep roots in this community. I have 6 generations of ancestors that are actually buried and who lived here before Tennessee was a state. It helped reinforce the fact to me that this is where I belong. This is where my wife and I chose to retire. We feel an integral part of this community and believe that our success is tied to the success of the town, that we thrive when the city thrives, and the only way to help with that is to become involved. So I chose to run for city commission to ensure that the city continues what it's doing well and to help do better at some things. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hunter?
Again, like the other candidates, I want to thank the league and the press for putting this forum together. And additionally, I'd like to thank city staff for helping and assisting provide the location for the forum. My name's John Hunter, and I'm running for re-election to the City Commission. I'm a lifelong resident of Johnson City. I attended public school here. I graduated from ETSU. And after a brief stint outside the region, my wife and I moved back to start our family. And I felt called to invest in the community that had provided so many opportunities to me growing up, and began by starting a neighborhood organization in our community, and then volunteered to serve on several boards and commissions here in Johnson City, including the Board of Dwelling Standards, the Regional Planning Commission, and several other boards within the city. And then finally, the people of Johnson City elected me to the Johnson City School Board, and now on the City Commission. I'm running because I care about the community I live in, I care about the people within our community, and I care about the success of our community. Thank you.
Ms. Brock?
Well, good evening, and thank you again to the League of Women Voters, and again, John, to the staff that you pointed out that's made this possible. First of all, let me say what a privilege it has been for me to serve the citizens of Johnson City for many years. I grew up in Johnson City, as John has alluded to, and for those teachers who are sitting in the audience, I'm a hilltopper. So it's been a great privilege to return to Johnson City after leaving for many years and retiring here and being able to serve the community. I'm running for re-election on my record as an experienced elected leader, having served as a member of the Johnson City School Board, served as a commissioner, the vice mayor, and mayor of Johnson City. You've had the opportunity to know my record and how I govern as a trustee to the citizens. I will continue to represent you as a pragmatic and respectful leader, using citizen input, listening to the expertise of our city staff, benchmarking other cities, and evaluating the community and the financial impact on issues before I vote. I will strive to be a great role model and ambassador for this city. It's a city that I love, and I want our young people to stay here. So as an elected leader, I promise you that I will continue to show that respect for our citizens and lead with an ethical base. Thank you.
Thank you. Our questions, candidates, will be projected here on this screen for those in the audience also, so if you need to refer to that. Our first question is, what skills and experiences do you have that you believe would be beneficial to you as a city commissioner? And we will start with Mr. Emberton.
Thank you. I know that we'll all talk at length this evening about leadership, and I bring some of that to this job. I'm a retired Army officer. I have been deployed 4 times. I have led a company of soldiers. And leadership is important, but I also have life experiences. I didn't figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up for a long time. I have been a 2-income family parent on WIC who struggled to make it. I am currently a small business owner in Johnson City, trying to make sure that I take care of my employees while still not going broke myself. I'm a member of the faculty at ETSU, and I believe that this combination gives me experience to represent the people of Johnson City, not just from good ideas of what I think we can do, but from the experience of having lived in some of those situations that the people who are going to trust me to take care of them have been in. Thank you.
Mr. Hunter.
So I'll take off my candidate cap and put on my voter cap. And when you think about this question from the perspective of a voter, I'm trying to think of what's a voter looking for in a commission candidate. And in my mind, 2 things come to play. One is good character, and the fact that all 4 of these candidates have chosen and are willing to step up and serve, in my mind, gives me faith that there's good character among all four of us. But beyond that, I believe experience matters, and not just experience, but relevant experience. Over the past 2 decades, as I mentioned earlier in my opening statement, I've served in various roles and volunteered in the community, not just to give back, but to continue to strive to be a better leader with the intent of someday serving on the Johnson City Commission. Serving in these various capacities have made me well-rounded so that I could be ready to step into this role and be the most prepared that I can be.
Thank you. Ms. Brock?
Thank you. Although I'm retired, in my career life, I spent 15 years in education and 15 years in the corporate world, so working for 2 Fortune 500 companies. It really presented me a well-rounded set of skills to be able to provide analysis and understanding how things work together. When you truly understand the job of a commissioner, we have to do that. When you activate one string, it impacts something else over here. So we have to look broadly across the city, across the impact to our citizens and the impact to our business community on all things that we do. I think one of the greatest things that we can do as a commission is planning. If you plan and have a roadmap on where you're going to be going, you know where to invest your dollars in getting there. I think we can clearly see that in many of the projects in downtown Johnson City. We stuck to our plan, and we're seeing the results of that. As I mentioned in my opening remarks, I'm very pragmatic. I like to look at facts and data and interview people and talk to our citizens, our businesses, our staff, to understand the full impact of something that we're going to do. So I feel like experience is a very important part of the role that I play, because I've learned as I have gone on what we need to do to be effective leaders in Johnson City.
Mr. Baker?
I'm a designer by profession and have worked in the corporate world, so I know about working with people to accomplish a single goal. And as Jenny was saying, it's very important that in the city that we work with all elements of the city together to actually accomplish what we're trying to do for Johnson City. We've made wonderful progress in growth that has happened in the last number of years, but I think we also have to temper that with understanding and acceptance of the diversity that is in our community. And I think working with designers has been a big plus for me to help me understand how I can work with all different people to accomplish something.
Thank you. Our second question is, what one particular issue motivates you to serve on the city commission? And please expound on that issue. Mr. Hunter?
I think it's my children. They're one of the reasons why I serve. I want them to come back. Jenny mentioned earlier about recruiting and retaining, individuals and students, and one of the groups that I want to retain in Johnson City are my children specifically. And so as we make these decisions, we consider what kind of Johnson City we have, and what are the things we lack, and what are the things that can keep our children here. And that's one of my motivations.
Ms. Brock?
One of the elements of our strategic plan is quality of place. And that has been really important to me to help mold Johnson City and turn it into a place that really supports children, families, and businesses alike. We've made great progress in that area because we've planned and we have developed projects like Founders Park, which was a flood mitigation project. It could have just been a detention basin, but we turned it into a park. And so that really fulfilled that quality of place, and we can see what's happened to that since then. It's taken a life of its own. So we continually look for twofers, that if we're doing mechanical projects or things like I just described, that we turn it into a value for our families, that they can enjoy it. And so I will continue along those lines. However, we do have major issues facing us going forward that we all have to stay focused on. We'll talk more about those.
Okay. Mr. Baker?
I don't know that there's one particular issue, because we are facing a number in our community. But I think the idea that everybody needs to have a voice in what's going on in our community, and we need to listen to one another so that we can work together and actually make this Johnson City grow, and grow without leaving anyone behind.
Okay. Mr. Emberton?
As John said, it is difficult to put it down to one particular issue, but I could distill it to say, people first. I want to make sure that all of our decisions in the city and all of the growth and all of the things that we choose to do are always considering the people of Johnson City first. Who is affected by what decision that we make? How are they impacted? It is important to me that no matter how much we grow, we don't lose sight of all of our citizens, from the small business owners to the veterans to the homeless to the underhoused. Everyone is impacted by many of the decisions that we make, and I want to make sure that we're asking ourselves the tough questions: who can be negatively impacted by the things that we do?
Okay. Our next question is, what approach would you take to communicate with the public? How can communication between city officials and the public be improved? And we'll start with Ms. Brock.
I think local governments are the most accessible governments that there are. For our city commission, all of our phone numbers, emails, and everything is listed right on the webpage. I engage a lot individually because I go to a lot of events, and I always interact with people at those events. I also, in some of my other service life, I mentor young people, and so I'm constantly in contact with their parents, and we have discussions about city business at the same time too. I always try to return my phone calls to anybody. We welcome anyone to call us individually, and I take those calls and respond to those calls. I answer my emails. I don't have group forums as an individual commissioner, but I think as we look at what we do in terms of appointing people to boards and commissions, that we are open to the public for those discussions prior to those appointments, and we encourage those. So I'm very receptive as an individual commissioner to engage with our public at any time.
Okay. Mr. Baker?
Keeping open lines of communication is very important, as Jenny said. It's important that we remember that we are servants of the city. And people in the city, our citizens, need to be able to talk with us and bring their concerns to us, and we need to then work together that we can address whatever issue it is that they are concerned about. I think it's important that we may have start a citizens group that can liaison between the city commission and all departments of the city to then the public in general. I think it's very important that all of us keep an open mind and keep open lines of communication.
Mr. Emberton?
To answer the first part of the question, I have to say that communicating with the public, once I am elected, I have to accept that I'm going to be talking shop for 4 years. I can't go to the grocery and expect just to get my stuff and go home. I need to accept that people are going to want to pull me aside and say, hey, what about this? And if I'm not willing to talk about things with people one-on-one that I see in the halls, I see in the grocery, then I'm stymieing communication at that level. Some people don't like to go to the formal events. They'd rather speak one-on-one. And if I can't encourage that, if I can't participate in that, if I want to just keep my private life private, I'm discouraging communication. When it comes to city officials as a group and communicating with the public, I know that we make forums available for community input. I think we could possibly do a better job letting the community know when those are, where those are, putting the availability of city officials as a group out to the community better, so that everyone knows when they can come see us in an official capacity.
Mr. Hunter?
So the approach that we take, and this isn't specific or unique to me, but, having served on the commission with the other commissioners, I feel like I've seen that all the commissioners, including myself, have been very willing to meet with and discuss with any and all citizens about any concerns or issues that residents have. In fact, I met with some at lunch today. As far as communication between city officials and the public, how to improve that, when I first came on, and Jenny referenced this, the way in which we had appointed boards and committees of volunteers from within the community was just kind of a haphazard mess. It was not transparent. It was not clear to not even us as commissioners, much less the general public, when what board was going to be available for an appointment, if there was a seat open, and really even what some of the boards did. And so, I brought the idea to the commission and staff that we reorganize how we do this so that citizens had clear understanding of what boards were available and when those appointments would be made. We've had more people in the public participate and more new faces serving on those community boards, which I think is one of the things that has increased the level of communication, because we have more people from the community being involved in making decisions and recommendations to the city commission.
Our next question is, what are the top infrastructure needs in Johnson City, and how would you address them? We'll start with Mr. Baker.
Well, the Walnut Street corridor, of course, is something that's going on right now that does show the need. Many of our infrastructure, many of our sewers, our water lines are close to 100 years old, and those need to be addressed. We need to redo them so that we can continue to grow as a city. We can't grow without infrastructure that takes care of those that want to live here. I think also parking is something that we need to think seriously about and start planning for, so that we can take care of the downtown area that right now on a Friday night or a Saturday night is very hard finding parking places. When I moved here, you could go down on a Friday and Saturday night and park anywhere downtown that you wanted to. There was nobody down there. But because of the wonderful growth that we've had as a city, we are now seeing that we do need to look at parking, and we do need to look at other things. As far as how we can address them, I think that's going to have to be a function of working with all the departments, the street, the housing, the sewer, the garbage, whatever. All of those need to work together so that we can accomplish that growth and continue to grow Johnson City.
Mr. Emberton?
I have to agree with John about parking. We are growing this city. We are bringing venues. We are bringing events, especially to downtown. And I know that there's a plan, that it is part of the plan, but it is hard to see before the construction begins. So parking, absolutely, downtown parking is a huge infrastructure issue. At the same time, I would say non-vehicular movement as infrastructure needs to become more focused on in downtown, especially as far as bicycle ways, pedestrian walkways, making things safe for folks who aren't driving to get around these venues and these events. Make sure that there are wider sidewalks, there are slowing structures so that it's safe for everyone who wants to be down here. And then wider than downtown Johnson City, in the city in general, I would say that public transportation while we do have it in place, can always be improved. And I believe that we enable more of our citizens to get to the things that we've developed for the town if we improve and make more available our public transportation.
Mr. Hunter?
There's not necessarily one top infrastructure project. There's several, and as far as the importance of these infrastructure, depending on where you live, different infrastructure projects affect you differently or have a higher importance than maybe others. You know, if we're looking at schools, for instance, I think some of the top infrastructure projects that we're looking at include continuing to improve the Indian Trail Middle School so that it's at the same level as Liberty Bell Middle School. Town Acres Elementary is in need of a new school, and then, quite frankly, Central Office has its issues that need to be addressed. And, you know, moving the lens back wider across the city as a whole, we recognize as a commission that growth has happened and is happening and will continue to happen. And with that, we want to make sure we stay ahead of that, and so we've commissioned a third party for a holistic growth management study to be done in order to make wise investments and utilize taxpayer dollars efficiently and effectively for continued infrastructure projects.
Ms. Brock?
You took some of my thunder there, John, so, but I will start talking about infrastructure that I think everybody can agree in this room. It is very expensive investments. And so, for example, one single lane of road to repave is $100,000 plus now. It's even more than that. So it's very, very expensive. And we dedicate about $3 million and some change to repaving every year. That only gets us a few miles of road. So the comprehensive plan that John is talking about is very important so that we can look at it in context to the growth that is coming in here. And so I will pick out one thing that I think we have to really keep our eye on, because as you look at transportation around Johnson City, there are some bottlenecks in certain places. We know that the growth that's happening out behind Lowe's there, we're having to work on the roads real quickly to try to get those widened. We have a train trestle and a tunnel there that is the pinch point for sure. But I think we do have to look at a comprehensive transportation plan too for new roads in Johnson City. Somebody years ago drew on the back of a napkin State of Franklin Road, and it changed the way you get around Johnson City. We're going to have to do that again in the future going forward. So we look forward to this comprehensive plan that we can use so we can figure out how to fund the different components and prioritize those components of that plan.
The next question. What do you see as feasible approaches to the varied challenges surrounding the needs of individuals experiencing homelessness in Johnson City? And we'll start with Mr. Emberton.
Man, these are less fun when you go first.
Take some time.
Yeah. I like that this question doesn't ask how we see solving homelessness, because that's not something that's ever going to be solved. And I learned from a mentor a long time ago that I don't have to know all the answers if I surround myself with people smarter than me who have the answers. I think our job as the city commission is to enable the experts, to ensure that all of the services that any of the homeless and underhoused could possibly need are available to them where and when they need them, that we put the services where the need is. I know this doesn't address specific events, but I believe it needs to be holistic. I know that the city should have a overarching plan that listens to experts and looks at other cities that have successfully addressed some of these issues and learn from their experience as well as our own.
Okay. Mr. Hunter?
You'll probably notice a theme from Commissioner Brock and myself over some of these questions, and that's that we're commissioning studies and doing research on these issues because we want to make the best decisions we can and not just decisions based out of opinion. we're working with somebody currently to identify opportunities and issues in addressing the quite frankly varied and wide-ranging issues around homelessness. You can't have a one-size-fits-all Band-Aid to this, because there are many different types of homelessness, and there are many types of ways in which people find themselves in those situations. And so I think one of the things that we're doing right now is looking at and identifying how are things going, what are the issues that are creating this issue and problem for people, and then continue to identify a strategic plan to handle and improve the situation, not only for the city as a whole, but for the individuals who are facing this crisis.
I might follow up as well that on October 13th, there's going to be a public review of that study on homelessness. I want to encourage everybody to be there. I think first and foremost that as we kind of evaluate how we have worked with the homeless in Johnson City, it's kind of been a circular thing. You know, it provides a lot of services and support for our homeless, but we haven't gotten to the point of where we have a shared goal. And so if that shared goal is, let's reduce the number of homeless people by getting them out of homelessness, or to help prevent people from entering homelessness. When I look at our population here, there is some kind of program for every single one of them, if we can get them to it. If there is mental health, we have mental health services. If there's addiction, there are addiction services. There are some people who just don't want to. And so for that, I mean, we may have to have a little tougher love with those people, because I don't feel they're entitled to also to block or to diminish the investments that other people downtown have made. We want to get them to where they can get some help, get back into the mainstream of life, and be able to have some flow to their life. So I think we have to start working at it at a level that we say, well, how do we get those people to those programs and get them matched up so they can get the help that they need. I don't think any of us feel compassion for having someone still staying on the street all the time. Compassion is we try to help them get out. So,
Mr. Baker.
I'll be very interested to see what happens on the 13th, because it has to be a multi-pronged approach. There's no one simple answer for homelessness or for those that are experiencing homelessness. We need to have a plan, and I think that's a wonderful starting point to work and get a plan together, but then we also need to work with all of the different services that are offered in this city to be able to really effectively not only have the plan, but to implement the plan and to help to really do steps that we can help these people where we can. And then we have services in the city that do offer programs. And if we can get those together with the people that are in need, then I think that's going to be the best way of approaching this. So I'll be very excited to see the plan that you've got coming up.
Thank you. Our next question. What is the biggest challenge? Not moving.
Nope, that's it. It's all good.
Okay, no, you can't stop. All right, listen. What is the biggest challenge, or one or two, you think Johnson City and its residents will face in the next 10 years? Biggest challenge or two that you think that residents will face in the next 10 years? And we'll start with Mr. Hunter.
I mean, it's growth. It's going to continue, and we need to make sure that we have a plan in place that allows us to address needs and be proactive about them, so that we can meet the expected needs as far as growth, so that we maintain the way in which we've all come to love Johnson City over the years. And so I would say maintaining and managing the growth is one of the key factors over the next 10.
Okay. Ms. Brock, so the biggest challenge or two
I
in the
think-
next 10 years?
I think one of the biggest challenges that we face as a community is just workforce availability and capacity. We heard earlier in the school board discussions about retention of teachers. We know that people are not going into teaching like they used to, so we may have a shortage there. I think just the capacity of healthcare in our community. We are short with nurses and other kinds of healthcare professionals to even operate our hospitals. I understand in some of our ERs, there may be 3 to 5 hours of wait time because they just don't have the staff to process people. So I think workforce is going to be one of those things. We have to get people back into the workplace. I think the other thing is, as John said, with growth, it's going to be a capacity issue. Are we going to be able to support the amount of growth that's coming in here so that infrastructure is not outpaced by growth? And so we need to get people focused on what those challenges are going to be so they can help in the solutions to those challenges as well. I'll say the last thing is raising our children here. And I think it's one of the things that's going to be very desirable for people to come here because this is such a great place to raise families. And so we want to see those children prosper, get educated, but also stay away from drugs. That is one of our big issues in this community today.
Mr. Baker?
I think tempering growth with understanding and also working, all of us together working, because we can, as Jenny said, grow and not have the infrastructure to support it. We need to keep that balance going, and we need to work toward keeping all of our citizens included in this so that we can grow but not outgrow. We need to be able to work together so that we can make Johnson City grow and be inclusive of all citizens.
Mr. Bird?
I think that there's two parts to the question, Johnson City and its residents. I think the city itself faces or is likely to face challenges from the unseen infrastructure. We repave roads and we spend a lot on that, but the hard things to address, and they're doing it along the Walnut Street corridor. Digging up pipes is horribly expensive and time-taking, and it's irritating to people, but if we don't do those things, at some point, our infrastructure will age out. So nobody likes the unseen improvements to their home or to their city, but if we don't address that, that can become a real problem down the road. I think for the residents of Johnson City in the next 10 years, if our growth stays the way it is, and I don't see any reason that it won't, at least in the short term, being able to find work that allows them to afford the housing that is getting more expensive, it's a two-prong issue. It's bringing in the employers who take care of the employees with a good wage, and that we're bringing in the right kind of employers, but we're also ensuring that those people can afford to live in Johnson City. And what things we can do to make sure that we don't price everyone out of just living in our own town.
Okay, thank you. Our next question. The city's 2020-2025 strategic plan includes a goal to gain a reputation as an equitable city for all citizens. How will you implement this goal in the decisions you make as a city commissioner? We'll start with Ms. Brock.
Well, I think one of the first things that we've done as a city commission right now is to pay very close attention to our appointments on the 13 to 15 committees that we have in the city to make sure that we're getting a good representation of all the folks who live here in Johnson City. I think there is room to continue to expand that goal and to come up with more tangible deliverables that we can come up with to make sure that, we are hearing the voices of all people in Johnson City. So I truly believe that when we have a variety of people sitting around the table, you always get a better product. And so it is to everyone's benefit that we do that.
Okay. Mr. Baker?
There's not really a single answer for this. I think that we have to go, as we're going along, we need to be, feel abreast of what is going on, take the temperature, and then work toward that goal of making this an equitable city. But it's going to be taking us as we go, every step of the way. There's not anything that you can say, oh, well, this is what's going to happen, because at each individual time, there may be different changes, different circumstances that come up, and we need to be flexible enough to work with those changes that we can keep an eye on our goal, but be able to be flexible enough to change as we go along.
Mr. Emberton?
So the question asks about gaining a reputation. I believe that you only get a reputation when others know what you do. The city has a lot of diverse programs, diverse events, and those are helping us gain that reputation. We need to make sure that community-wide, region-wide, Appalachian Highlands-wide, the things that we do are advertised, they're promoted, and the word gets out there. You don't gain a reputation if nobody knows what you do. I think when it comes to the decisions as a city commissioner, one of the things that I teach my cadets is that it is important to ask yourself who is affected by your decisions. I think everything that we choose to do before we make a decision, we have to ask ourselves and get a good, clear answer, who is affected by this? And if our decisions affect certain groups inordinately, then that can work against our reputation as being equitable. So we look hard, we ask the questions, and maybe we put off the decision if the answer is someone in a specific group is being affected.
Mr. Hunter?
So I think in some of the questions we've answered so far, I think we've demonstrated some of the things that we've already been doing as this strategic plan started 2 and a half or plus years ago. When we talk about equitable, to me, what we're talking about is opportunity, giving people in the citizens in our community the opportunity to be involved, the opportunity to work in fields in which they have interest and expertise. And I feel that we've done a good job of starting down that road. We mentioned the different boards and commissions that serve and that we appoint to. We've made that extremely transparent and very inclusive, to where, again, we've had so many people apply that I don't think we've ever seen this amount of people applying, and new people are serving and giving their input at varying levels. When we talk about infrastructure, you don't have to look far from City Hall to see the investments we've made in the Langston Community Center and the roads and the neighborhoods around there, and how we've partnered with housing nonprofits such as ASP and the like to create affordable housing. And those are the opportunities that I see that we've been working and striving towards, and in some respects have been successful.
Okay. Our next question. City commissioners must at times decide to support or to oppose controversial issues that have vocal supporters on both sides. Two things. What process are you going to use, and with whom would you consult in making these decisions? We start with Mr. Baker.
I think if we have communication, open communication, that a lot of that can be taken ahead of time. And I think that it's important that we bring in people, knowledgeable people in different areas, to depend on them to give us guidance as to what is going to be the correct way of going. Of course, you will always have people that oppose what you do, and you'll always have people that agree with what you do. But as long as we keep an open line of communication and we explain why we're doing what we're doing, and we listen to the experts, I think that we can make this a positive environment.
And what process would you use, and to whom would you talk to, Mr. Emberton?
So, I'll answer the second part first.
Okay.
With whom would you consult? I suppose the process isn't included in this. You have to be willing to hear the people who are upset in whatever manner they want to put that information out. Some folks do not like to come to organized forums and speak publicly, but you have to be willing to open up some sort of forum so that you get input from both sides of any event, any controversial issue, and then consult with your experts. Experts can give you the guidance, but you have to listen to the people who are affected by the issue so that you know what they need, what they want. So the process is being open, being available, listening to upset people.
Yeah. Mr. Hunter, the process you would use, and who?
The process is pretty open and fluid, in that, you know, we get communication from people in various ways, email, cell phone, in the grocery stores, Mr. Emberton mentioned. It's constant, and we expect it, and so we're all of us have been open and willing to communicate and listen to concerns and issues of citizens when they see a topic in the paper. You know, over the past 4 years, we've had some fairly emotional and very, very serious, both at the national and local level, issues that we've been addressed with and that citizens have had concerns about. We've had staff and ourselves involved in forums. We've responded to emails, met people over breaking bread in order to get, you know, different perspective, because we are representatives of the people of Johnson City, and we must listen to those concerns and respond to those in a respectful manner.
Ms. Brock?
In 2020, I was serving as mayor. It was a very good year for COVID, and then we had numerous weeks of protests in the downtown streets of Johnson City. The environment could have been very, very volatile. But the police chief and I went as mayor, recognized we needed to engage with the people so they knew they were being listened to. The important thing, though, in that was to be able to get the dialogue and discussion moved to a place where it was safe and where progress could be made. So we kind of used the motto from protest to productivity. And so we were able to get the leaders of those protests to meet with us, and we met at the Langston Center on 3 different occasions. And really we're able to share information with the group that they didn't have. They simply didn't have or understand the police budget, for example. So the process for me would be to try to move any kind of engagement to a place where progress could be made. We don't make personnel decisions in group environments out on the steps of City Hall. That's not good governance. And so for me, it would be to try to get that environment that we could share a common goal and try to reach that.
Okay. Our next question you've talked about, but I want you to go a little deeper. And, you know, what can Johnson City do to effectively manage the influx of people who have moved here now? They're here now, and they want jobs and they want other schools and things like that, as well as what we anticipate in the future. But what can we do right now? We're going to start with Mr. Emberton.
I think that we have to be able to manage expectations of the folks who are coming here. And I believe that we need to inform folks before they ever get here of what is available, what isn't available, and give them just general information in a consolidated place where they can go. My wife is a member of a Facebook page, Coming to Johnson City, and it seems to be the de facto information source that the city should have, that consolidates all the information that folks who want to come here can get in a single place. And I acknowledge that there is a website. The Johnson City website does a good job and has good information, but I feel there should be a focused area of, if you are new to our town, or if you plan to be new to our town in the near future, here's what you need to know. Here's how the housing is. Here is how the job market is. Here is how the schools are. And just a consolidated, easy to read, how is it in Johnson City resource.
Mr. Chapter?
Quite frankly, the city has many roles and responsibilities. I don't know that this directly is a responsibility of letting people know of resources and where to go and whatnot. However, we do work with the organizations that they are charged with that. We partner with the chamber, the CBB, and other entities, including large employers who are bringing people into the community, and we provide them information, and we work with them on those communication avenues in order to effectively let people know that we've got a great public education system, that we have amenities and different resources available for citizens as they move in.
Ms. Brock?
A few weeks ago, I was talking to a family who just recently moved here, and I asked them how they found Johnson City, and they said they saw pictures of our Christmas trees. They were from upstate New York, and so they saw it in the New York Post. And they drove down here, loved the city, and they had moved here 4 months before that. I think it's going to be vitally important if we see the numbers, and there's a prediction that in the next decade, we could grow by 20,000 people. One of the things that's very important for me, that as we look at this growth and how we integrate new people into the community so that we don't lose our character and our culture that made us East Tennesseans. And in order to do that, we need to get them engaged into community events. Someone mentioned the diversity of festivals that we have here, and it is wonderful. So if we can get them engaged and involved, we've appointed, I think we have a 1 year, you have to live here at least 1 year to be on a committee, but we really encourage them to come and apply so that they understand who this area is. And that's what's so attractive to people. That's why they want to come here. So we need to make sure that Jay, I think it was called the Welcome Wagon that used to be around, and it was a strong part of any community to go in and do just the things we're talking about, and to also talk about the culture and the character of a community. But I agree, we have to manage this, and in our growth plan, I believe that will be addressed.
Mr. Baker?
Having a comprehensive plan for the future is very important. We also have to be realistic about expectations that we have in this area. We can only go so far at a time, so that's why that I think the comprehensive plan of how we're going to address infrastructure, how we're going to address transportation, housing, all of these issues that will continue to grow, as Jenny said, 20,000 plus people in the next 10 years. That's a lot of people, and that's a lot of infrastructure that we need to do. So it's very important that we follow a plan and we are flexible enough to adjust that plan as things come along, because this is a wonderful area to live. That is one of the reasons that I moved here in 2003. I love this area. I love the hiking, the nature that we have here, and the people. And I think that's important that we continue to maintain that in our growth so that we don't lose sight of it.
Okay. The next question. What do you believe are the three most important responsibilities of a city commissioner? Three. If elected, how much time do you plan to devote to these responsibilities? And we'll start with Mr. Hunter.
Cool.
Take your time.
Yeah. I think the three most important responsibilities of the city commissioner, one is to be prepared, to know of the issues at hand that we're called upon to answer. A lot of times we have questions before us that can be confusing and that people misinterpret, and that happens a lot of times in zoning as to what we actually are here to answer before on the city commission. And so I think being prepared and understanding the issues that come before us is key. Being open and honest and having open dialogue with concerned citizens when that arises is a key factor. And then I think it's important for each commissioner to have a vision of what we need to do and understand in the community here in Johnson City.
Ms. Brown.
The commission is a fiduciary body for the city, and one of our most fundamental responsibilities is passing a budget. This past year, we passed the largest budget in Johnson City's history of over $300 million. That's a third of $1 billion. It's a big responsibility. In order to pass that budget, we have to know every aspect of it. And so the time commitment, particularly during the budget process, is very big. We review individual departments, we look at their goals, their objectives, what they've accomplished with last year's budget. And then we look at things, as John said, there's some things too that we see that maybe we don't have in that budget that we might want to consider, encouraging our administration to put in there. So that's one. The second responsibility we have is passing ordinances, the laws of the city. And those can be very complex. We have a staff attorney that advises us on that. But everything citizens have to adhere to in Johnson City, we pass those ordinances. And the last, and probably some of the most difficult ones for me anyway, is about land use and zoning. And so we get at every single meeting requests for zoning or annexations. And so you really have to know your stuff because it's complicated. There are a lot of laws behind zoning and the things that we have set in terms of how we want Johnson City's land use to be used. And yes, it takes a lot of time.
Three responsibilities, Mr. Becker.
I think probably the listening and planning and being physically responsible. We have to be able to listen to our citizens and understand where they're coming from and be receptive to them. We also need to have plans in place for adjusting codes or anything of this nature that comes up, things that need to be adjusted as we grow and more situations happen. So it's important that we have that. I think we also need to be resourceful with our money, and we need to be realistic about what we can do and what we need to do as far as a major infrastructure planning. We need to be able to have this money, and we need to be responsible about how we use it, but also be daring enough to go ahead and spend. I think it's very important that we, as a city commission, help to lead the city and guide it.
Mr. Epperton.
So as an individual commissioner, I think that I have to agree with Mr. Hunter that I have a responsibility to be informed, to learn all sides, to do the research, to find out why something is a problem, to find out what resources we have to address it. I think our second responsibility is to be communicative to be open to the public, even for negative issues, especially during negative issues. We need to communicate at all times with the public and be as transparent as we can. And I think as an individual commissioner, my third responsibility is to be willing to admit when I don't have an answer, to say, I need to ask someone who's smarter than me on this topic before I make a decision, that I have the responsibility to admit when I don't know something. I think that when it comes to how much time do I plan to devote to these responsibilities, my wife is fully aware that we're going to have to give up some of our shows because I'm going to spend a lot of time in the evenings reading.
Okay. The next question.
Whoa.
And I get this one right.
Read it in. Yes, Jenny, you're going to start on this one, so. The State General Assembly has approved a number of measures allowing political parties to turn races for local offices into partisan contests. The local example is the Johnson City Board of Education, which has traditionally been nonpartisan race. Are you in favor of turning other nonpartisan elections, such as the Johnson City Commission, into a partisan contest?
I can say that in 2 words, absolutely not. The charter of the city of Johnson City was in place in 1939, and the commissioners who developed that were very wise people. It has lasted and has served the city well all this time. There may be some charter changes that were needed. We changed the election. That was a charter change a few years ago. But I believe the city commission should stay nonpartisan. I consider myself a trustee that is responsible for the things that we do on the commission that really kind of looks out after the well-being of our city. I don't think we need a political filter on the commission. Now, everybody up here probably has some leanings one way or another, but it's never brought into play whatsoever. I mean, we are focused on this city, on the elements that are in front of us, and what is in the best interest of our citizens.
Mr. Baker?
No, I am not in favor. When we have local issues and local things such as the city commission, I think we need to be more aware of all of the people that are in our city and all the different beliefs and thoughts that are in our city from those people. And I think we need to accept that and treat them fairly. And I do not believe that party needs to be part of the issue.
Mr. Emberton?
Easy, no.
Okay.
Next question. To expound on no. When you, especially at the local government level, when you talk about issues one-on-one with individuals and you avoid buzzwords, you avoid triggering phrases, and you talk about the things that are bothering people, we are all a whole lot more alike than we are different and separate at national, global, political levels. It's not necessary to check whether someone's got that D, the R, or the I in front of their name to decide if you agree or disagree with where they stand on a policy. I think that we are doing a great job as a city commission without that, and I don't see any benefit from it. So, again, no, I am not in favor.
Mr. Hunter?
You know, whether or not I'm in favor of nonpartisan versus partisan races is somewhat irrelevant in my mind. The decision's not up to us, as we saw with the school board. It's up to other decision makers. And I think a question that's more relevant and probably more important to our citizens is, what do I think is going to happen? I'm fairly confident, whether we like it or not, that at some point in time, the City Commission will follow suit with the Board of Education and become partisan races. My willingness to serve is not tied to the races being partisan or nonpartisan. I believe that regardless of being affiliated with my party or not, my willingness to serve and my care for this community is the overriding factor. So, you know, for me, it's not necessarily a matter of my feelings or my thoughts of whether it's good or bad. There's pros and cons to the current election cycle or the way in which we run it nonpartisan. There's going to be pros and cons to the way in which a partisan race will run as well. And that's my take on it. Thank you.
We've gone through the questions that have been prepared, but I'm going to ask you one more. So, is there anything that you're just haven't had a chance to, we didn't ask you a question about, that you're passionate about, that you would fix if you were elected, that we haven't asked tonight? Something that's important to your candidacy as a commissioner? And we'll start with Mr. Baker, and then we'll do closing remarks.
I think being able to listen to all the citizens of Johnson City, because everybody here has a responsibility as well as effect about what we do in our city. And I think it's very important that all of us work together so that we can make our city a wonderful place for everybody to live and include everybody in the city.
Mr. Emberton, an issue that we haven't talked about that you're passionate about?
Well, I'm biased because I am a retired serviceman, so I have a personal focus on making sure that our veterans have what they need. We have one of the best VA hospitals in the region, and I know that we have the ability to care for our veterans, but we need to make sure that we are giving them consideration, and not undue or overly focused, but that they have the opportunities, that they were willing to do whatever it took for us as a nation, that we in turn are willing to repay that willingness to sacrifice by ensuring that they don't go without. That we give opportunities, that we take care of our homeless or our mentally challenged or our addicted veterans, that we understand that some of them have very unique challenges that don't come to everyone, and that we ensure that our veterans specifically are not left out of discussions.
Mr. Hunter, an issue it's important to you?
Yeah, absolutely. We've spent a lot of time tonight talking about how we spend money, but we've not talked much, if at all, about how we generate revenue, the ugly word taxes. And I'll be honest, I hate paying taxes. I mean, I pay them, but I hate paying them. But what I do love is the fact that when I go with a glass to the sink and turn the tap on, I'm confident that we have safe and reliable water to drink. I'm excited by the fact when I take my children to school, they're going into secure buildings, getting a quality education from wonderful teachers. And I feel secure in the fact that if, God forbid, something happened to me or family members or friends, we have responders on call to take care of us in the time of need. And as Jenny referenced, these things aren't free. They're expensive, and we've discussed that in depth tonight. But my goal is to keep taxes low. And over the past 4 years, the way in which we've done that has been an investment in infrastructure, and that has created economic vitality, which in turn has generated additional tax revenue without increasing the tax rate. So one of my goals is to continue to keep taxes low in our region and in our city specifically.
Okay. Ms. Rock, something that's a passion for you.
Well, we've mentioned this tonight, but we haven't talked about it in depth, and that is just affordable housing.
Yeah.
The concern that I have right now, kind of in our post-COVID inflationary period, housing has increased by 26% in our area. So it's really kind of Xing out even median income people from being able to buy a house. Now let's talk about low-income people, because rents have increased probably even greater than that. My concern right now with the way the economy has been going and the inflationary issues that we're facing is that we're going to have more who will fall into that category, that they get kicked out of their apartments because rents went up $200 in 1 month, or they can't even buy a house because it's over 30% of their income, let alone come up with 20% down payment. So we have to address affordable housing. We have gone to Greenville, South Carolina to look at their program. We've looked at other cities and what they do, and there's a lot of tax increment financing that could be considered. There are a number of programs that we considered that as a city we need to really explore every single one and see what we can do.
Thank you. You did a good job. Okay, so now we will go to closing statements. We will start at this end with Ms. Brock and come back this way and end with Mr. Baker.
Well, as I mentioned in my opening statement, that it's just been a tremendous privilege for me to serve this city. I think in the years that I have served, and as you look at my record, great progress has been made, but yet there are some big challenges in front of us. I believe my experience and depth of knowledge in the city and in the school system is really needed as we proceed forward with the growth that we're talking about. I would be honored to serve again. I have the drive and energy to do it, and I would ask for your vote. My name is Jenny Brock.
First, I want to, again, thank everybody for coming or watching online. I want to thank the candidates for being willing to step up and for the opportunity to potentially serve on the commission. The common theme here tonight is growth and how do we manage it. And I think when we consider that and we're looking at who we're going to make the decisions for the city and how we're going to handle the growth that impacts this city, relevant experience truly matters. And that's why I'm running. I'm asking for your vote, and I appreciate the time.
Thank you. Mr. Emberton.
I concur with, thank you to the league, thank you to the press. I feel that I am bringing a unique point of view. This is not a race to unseat anyone who is doing a bad job. This is not a race to fix problems. Johnson City is doing a great job. The City Commission is doing a great job. I believe that we can benefit from new points of view, and I believe I bring that. I want to make sure that we focus on our people, that we're taking care of everyone from the homeless and the underserved to our responders, our military, our veterans. Everyone in the city needs to be considered whenever we make a decision, and I think that I can help ensure that we focus on that. I would appreciate your vote. My name is Jay Emberton.
Mr. Baker.
I would like the opportunity to offer my time and my efforts to help Johnson City continue to grow and to be a wonderful place to live, to raise a family, to retire to. I don't have the answers for everything, but I am certainly willing to talk to professionals, try and get guidance, get understanding, work with any number of people. I think that is the key thing. We have to work together when we're in a small area like this. The working together is the only way that we can go forward. I'm John Baker. I appreciate your vote.
Thank you. I want to thank you candidates for being willing to run for office. It's commendable that you chose to spend all your extra time in doing some of these things to serve this town and this county, our state and our country. Because it starts, all politics are local.
Right here.
And that's where it starts. So we want to thank you for this, being in this forum tonight. On behalf of the League of Women Voters and the Johnson City Press, I want to thank our audience for being here. Let's thank our candidates tonight. I also want to remind everybody and to also thank our excellent city staff who've been behind this and help us do this and all the work that they did to make this a great forum and this excellent facility and allowing us to be here tonight. And I would like you to remember that to all citizens to register to vote, the last day is October 11th, and make a plan to vote on in the November 8th election. Early voting starts October 19th. Thank you.
Thank you.